We're back.
We're back. Yes,
Welcome
we're
back.
talking to our guests already.
Welcome back. So
Yeah.
we want to welcome via Skype and on the phone that we have Daniel Share-Strom and Maxine Share, and hopefully I've said your names right. And we want to welcome you to the show. I am so excited because I have followed you guys for a while, and I'm a little bit starstruck having you on the show with us, okay? I'm just going to admit to that. So, but maybe we should talk a little bit about what the both of you are. Maxine, you're a wonderful advocate, writer, consultant, workshop facilitator, and developer. You're a passionate champion of strengths and abilities for all people on the spectrum. And Daniel, I would prefer if you tell us a little bit about you.
Sure. So I'm a motivational speaker we're in Ontario, for those who don't know. I'm a motivational speaker about what it's like to live on the spectrum. I'm on the spectrum myself. I go around doing workshops, motivational speeches, keynote speeches, different kinds of things, all in the name of advocating for better lives for people with autism.
And you both run the popular Facebook page Autism Goggles, is that correct?
That's good.
And tell us about that.
So Autism Goggles is a social initiative that we started because we want to help people to see life through the autism lens, so to speak. So we like it when people don't understand something or when they can't relate to why their loved one with autism is doing something or acts a certain way. We like them to think about it from that person's perspective and to essentially to try and understand why they act the way they are.
Yeah, we strongly believe that behavior issues are not really behavior issues in the common understanding of that phrase. That a behavior issue is really a lack of understanding issue or a lack of appropriate support issue. So we really want to try and change people's understanding so that the actions they take will just naturally be more appropriate and a more respectful and supportive approach.
I have a quote here that you said, when you're high functioning, society doesn't care about your needs. When you're low functioning, they don't care about your strengths. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah.
Pretty much. There's very little patience for individuals like myself or like Daniel who are on the spectrum. If you can speak and you are average or higher in intelligence, then the assumption is that if you are not able to manage your emotions, or if you cannot perform a life skill, or you are not comfortable in a social situation or myriad other issues, that's a choice you're making. That you're just being difficult and you need to get it together and smarten up. And so if you have sensory issues, you have learning differences, executive functioning issues, anxiety, sleep issues, tummy trouble, suck it up. Because you're smart and you can speak, so your issues are not really issues. By the same token, for the individuals that don't communicate in traditional ways, so with spoken language, the tendency is to teach, and I don't want to paint with too broad a stroke, but it tends to be that they are taught just the very basic life skills, to fold a mean towel in our systems of support, but the strengths that they have are not nurtured. They are not given academic curriculum. And I've had the privilege of meeting so many individuals who don't communicate in spoken word, who are absolutely brilliant, excellent writers, artists, loving family members. And so there really just is a lack of understanding of autistic individuals across the spectrum. And also from across the spectrum, we need to understand each other better too. And we need to be united in the struggle to get supports for everyone of all needs, regardless of what those are.
Yeah, I agree, and gonna stay away from getting too political or anything, but had his mom with him, and she had a laminated sheet with the alphabet on it, and he started pointing to the letters and gave us a message, and he said, "Thank you, Daniel, for telling everyone how we feel. We have so much in common," and I think that's so important to get out there, that everyone with autism has strengths and needs, regardless of how they project themselves.
Yes, and we had a nonverbal individual who was assessed, who would have likely been assessed below the first percentile, and Daniel, who cognitively is very high and he's very highly verbal, seemingly opposite in that way, and yet they were able to stand there and have a conversation, the other man by pointing to letters and having his mom read out his message, right? And so they had much more in common than they had to separate them. Sorry, that was a long answer, wasn't it?
No, that
But
was
you know
a good
what?
one.
It was a very inspirational
Yes.
answer, so we thank you for it. And you know, one of the things that you talk about is how ignorance it can come to the detriment when dealing with coping behaviors. So let's talk a little bit about that and what you mean by that.
Sorry, I didn't hear the first part of that, Shannon.
So you talk about coping behaviors and how ignorance can get in the way of people being able to use coping behaviors. Can you talk a little bit about that?
You go ahead first, Shannon.
Yeah, so a lot of the time, a common misconception about autism is that anxiety is a symptom. That's just not true. And a lot of people with autism do have some kind of mental health challenge. Your statistics vary, but I think I've seen statistics ranging from about 70 to 80% of people have some kind of anxiety or depression or other mental health issue. But that's not something they're born with, because these things come from being misunderstood in a society that was really not built with autism in mind. So when the lights are too bright, or when people expect you to remember too many things without having it written down, or things like that, that can cause anxiety, and it's going to cause certain coping behaviors. So I think that a lot of the time people try to address those behaviors rather than trying to get at the root cause. Would you say that's right?
I do, and I also think that, autism really is just another way of being human. It is a different way of learning, a different way of experiencing the sensory, physical world. We know now that, 90% of individuals with ASD have sensory and motor differences that are either the cause of their behaviors or emotional responses, or are contributing to those. And we also know that autism is a social communication condition, and yet, where are the supports for those things? When we hand our precious children over to the school system, where the heck is the social communication curriculum to teach them how to, initiate, maintain, and nurture friendship, how to resolve conflict, how to understand social situations in all different environments? We don't teach that, but we are quick to shame our children when they get it wrong, and that seems to be the practice, that we catch kids being autistic and then we shame them for it and say, don't do that, that's weird, instead of stepping back, trying to identify the gap in their understanding, and as the system of support, as the adult, finding a way to teach that curriculum based on how they need. So because we don't do that, kids get anxious, kids develop low self-esteem, because we don't, at least up here, we don't provide kids with comprehensive sensory assessments, and so we're not identifying whether someone is under or oversensitive in any of the 8 sensory sensory systems. And again, if someone needs to engage in a behavior in order to pay attention, like the board and doodling and rocking while the teacher's talking, and that is how I can attend and learn. What we might hear from home is Max is not paying attention. She's being rude and doodling while I am trying to teach. And so the coping behavior of an individual trying to do their best to pay attention is shamed and reprimanded, and we, exacerbate and we add to the anxiety and the struggle of the individual. So rocking, chewing, ripping paper, eloping, whatever we do, it's to try and cope with a world that moves too fast, right? With the academic curriculum, sensory demands, social demands that really move too fast for many of us. We like to do things one at a time. One of the best descriptions I heard is that, we are 10-second people in a 2-second world. So, we may all be just as capable as typical learners, but we definitely, as a whole, learn in different ways, and we need those ways of learning to be provided all the time. Not sometimes, if you luck into a teacher who happens to know, but all the time. And that may move us to the next question, because we do believe that the root of the dire mental health issues and the lack of independence at adulthood, the root of that starts with the school system.
Mm-hmm.
Which I'm in such agreement, and this is, we're almost out of time, and so we're going to have to cut it short, but this is why I'm huge fans of yours, because you're so inspirational, and I think your message comes from a place of truth, and it's honest in a way that I don't think a lot of other people get to. And hearing you speak, I've seen videos of you guys speaking. Oh my gosh, if you need a speaker to come to something, you two are powerhouses, and you really move your audiences because it's this kind of message.
That's the message.
Well,
Let's talk about how people can reach you.
yes, how can people get a hold of you, and how can people see some of the videos of you speaking?
So you can check us out at Facebook on Autism Goggles, and you can also send us an email to autismgoggles@gmail.com.
Okay, great. So if they're interested in you for speaking engagements, or if they're just finding out more about your philosophies, they can reach out to you those ways.
Yeah, and if you are interested in seeing some of the videos that we have done, you can just put my name into YouTube. You'll see my TED Talk. You'll see my address to the Center for Disease Control last year. And,
Which made me stand up in my living room, Daniel. I stood up.
Thank you.
And we'd love for you to come back again, because this was not long enough.
Not
Would
long
you be
enough.
willing to do that?
Sure.
Thank you. That would be awesome. Thank
Okay.
you.
Go ahead.
You know what? We have so many followers now. We've been doing this for so long. We read very dire stories every day. People who are really struggling, and we have a lot of this in our, friends and family. A lot of autism, and I don't know if I made it clear that I'm also on the spectrum. And so we really just want to stop the pain that the lack of understanding is causing. It's not the autism, it's the ignorance of autism.
Very
And
good note to leave on.
Exactly. Thank you so much for everything that you're doing and everything that you're saying. We are going to bring you back, because there are so many questions I have. But thank you so much for being with us. We're out of time, you guys.
We're out of time.
We got a great show for you tomorrow. Please come back and see us tomorrow. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from
And
me.
yourselves a hug from me. Bye-bye for now.
Bye-bye for now. You guys.